Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel, where today you're joining me in yet another Range Rover. This particular one is an L320 which ran from 2005 all the way up until 2013, and this one in particular to that is a late 2012, so this is after two previous facelifts. The second one wasn't quite so obvious, but I'll explain through what they are, and it is obviously the best of what the L320 was before they stopped production on this one and started the L494. So this one here has the 3-litre SDV6, which produces 255 brake horsepower, and it's paired with the 8-speed gearbox, and it has this cool little dial down here. So this was the first time that they'd seen it in a sport with the 8-speed, and it's a massive improvement from the 6-speed. The 6-speed's still a good gearbox, there's no doubt about that. It still does everything you want it to do, tows the 3.5 ton and everything like that. But the 8-speed meant that it was a little bit more economical and a little bit more civilised when driving, and you can definitely feel that coming through. I'm of the belief here that the L320 was supposed to go for another couple of years after this facelift, because the facelift only came through in late 2011, and then, as I say, they stopped production of it in 2013. So I think they had actually planned to continue with this model for a little bit longer, but I think with competitors market and everything like that, they decided that the L494 was the way to go. And don't get me wrong, I have an L494 myself, I think they're great cars, but there is something about the L320, much like the L322, it is the iconic Range Rover shape. And when you see them on the road, it still has that elegance and that class about it, and this really is the best of what they had to offer. And you can see that just within the media screen and things like that, in the relativeness of keeping with modern technology, really, because you can still connect the phone via Bluetooth to actually stream your audio as well. You could connect the phone on the previous models, but it was literally only for telephone calls. But this one you can stream the audio, which is quite nice. It's just a crisp display, much quicker to use. They use the same screen setup in the L494 and the later cars, the Evoque and also the Discovery 4. The Discovery 4, obviously being part of the Land Rover brand, is very closely related to the L320, but so much so that they use the same chassis, engine, gearbox, suspension setups, everything. They even use the same fuel tanks, in the sense that you could take the body off of this L320 and replace it with a Discovery 4. That's how closely related they are. And you can see that the Discovery 4 did go on for those few extra years with this same setup, the same engine, the same gearbox, and also the same media systems and everything like that. So you can definitely see that they were really striving towards giving the best that they could with this last of the L320. It comes as standard with the HSE specification. You do get the bits like the electric memory heated seats, heated rear seats, you get the rear camera, you get the sat nav and things like that. So it is a good spec car to begin with. This is the HSE Luxury. So in the later part of the L320, they had the HSE Luxury, HSE Black, and they also had a HSE Red as well. The red you don't see quite so often these days, but this one here, being the Luxury, means you get a few chrome bits on the outside. So the rear, on the tailgate there's a chrome bar going across. You get chrome across the front splitter, and you get these nice alloy wheels as well, which are quite nice. They're part of the Luxury package. You also get leather everywhere, so you got leather on the top of the dash here, on the top of the door cards, and it's a really nice specification to have, that HSE Luxury. This one, over and above what came as standard, actually had the improved Harman Kardon. So there were two bandings that you could get, and this one had the improved one, which is quite nice. And it also has heated steering wheel, and if you've watched previous videos of mine, I love a heated steering wheel. It sounds like a gimmick, it sounds like why would you ever need that, but it is really quite nice to have. Of course, it doesn't affect how it drives, it doesn't affect any other car or any other manufacturer and think, yeah, I would definitely go for that. But a heated steering wheel, it is quite nice to have, it's fair to say. And of course, heated seats, that does come as standard as part of the HSE, as I've already mentioned, but again, nice to have. It's a really pleasant drive, it's fair to say. Everything's intuitive, everything's where you'd expect it to be, and of this era, which I've said again in previous videos, it still has physical buttons for everything, and I really quite like that. You've got a dial for your temperature, and the temperature reads nice and easy. Your fan control just down here, your buttons for your heated seats, and then you've also got an electric powered tailgate, which came as part of the HSE Luxury spec. And it's just, you've got these subheadings with the touchscreen. You don't have to distract yourself too much from the road to be able to function within the car. It's really quite nice to have. And in terms of the actual drive itself, with this 8-speed and this 3-litre SDV6, it's pleasant. It's a really quiet cabin. You've got plenty of power there when you need it. As already mentioned, you can still get the 3.5-ton tow capacity, which is really handy for someone like myself, because I do go and collect cars quite often. So I've actually had a couple of the L320s previously as my own personal cars. Went through a nice puddle there. As my own personal cars, and I think they've been brilliant. I think they really have been brilliant. I went from the L320 then to the L322, and then from the L322 Westminster that I had, I went to the L494. It feels very, very familiar, and it is also at this present time in the market a fraction of the cost of what you can get an L494, and you still get all of the tech. You still get the look of elegance and class. I think it's definitely one to consider for absolute certainty. And yes, there are people that just don't like the Range Rover brand, and obviously it's all subjective, of course it is. I think if you find one that's been really well maintained, this particular one's only done 74,000 miles, has a full service history all the way throughout, and just nice, lovely service history, really been well maintained, and I think you can't really go far wrong. That's not to say they're bulletproof. I'm not saying they never have their issues or anything like that, of course they do, but you are off to a better start if it's been well maintained, it's fair to say. And in terms of a running cost on these particular ones here as well, they are the more expensive tax bracket, because they didn't have the stop-start technology. It meant that it stayed within that higher tax bracket, which is a bit of a pain really. So as it stands on the UK market at the moment, it is £615 a year to tax, and the MPG is better with the SDV6 and also with the 8-speed. Not amazing, but on these country roads that I like to do my reviews on, and it is realistically where I live, so you do get a mixture of everything. But I'm averaging at 30 miles to the gallon. It's 29 point something, but let's call it 30 miles a gallon. Let's be a little bit more optimistic and say that it's not so bad. And I think for a car of this caliber, this size, it has the aerodynamics of a house. So I do think that it's not so bad being at 30 miles to the gallon. And it does give me a huge amount of practicality, and I do get all the creature comforts that I quite like. So the Harman Kardon sound system is absolutely brilliant. As I say, this is the upgraded one, but even the standard HSE that comes with the Harman Kardon, that's a very good system to have. I just don't think there's a huge amount out there on the market. Now, I am very subjective, I know that, because I am a massive Range Rover fan. I don't think there's much out there on the market for this kind of money to give you this kind of car. And they are a slightly more expensive car to maintain and to run. There's no doubt about that. The tax is higher, the fuel cost isn't great, but it's not so bad for the size of the vehicle that it is. The servicing cost, I think if you find a good, reputable specialist to look after your Land Rover / Range Rover, you're on for a winner. You can of course take it back to main dealer, but main dealer do charge through the nose on their labour rates even before you get to parts. So it is definitely one to consider, but it is just a huge amount of car for your money, and that, as I say, it is subjective. You can make your own mind up, and it sounds like I'm being incredibly biased in this video, but I think that's why you're watching it at the end of the day. So it is a very comfortable drive. It's very, very comfortable. The air suspension is very good as well. It is just all what I would want it to be in a car. You've also got the terrain response as you ordinarily have. They changed the styling of it a little bit in the 2012 ones as well. So it used to be a dial that used to switch around, but this one's just 2 buttons. It's a little bit more minimalistic, which is quite nice. You still get the fridge within the compartment here. You got the nice 2-tone dash. Just a really pleasant place to be. It's really not too bad, It's not quite as quick as what my L494 is, but then as much as it's the same SDV6, the L494 is producing a lot more horsepower, but it's a very comfortable acceleration point in the sense that you can still get around the stuff that you need to get around, and it's still quite quiet in the cabin. It's just a really nice place to be. And I keep mentioning that, don't I? I keep saying it's a really nice place to be, just because it is. I really have a soft spot for the L320. I've had a couple of them myself. I've sold many of them through the showroom, and people always have great things to say about them. There are a few things to look out for. They are big, heavy vehicles, so you quite often will need to do lower arms or anti-roll bar bushes, or D bushes as they call them, on the front end. And that's purely because they are, as I say, over 2 ton of truck. And in order to give you that comfort and everything, they still need to use various different configurations of suspension arms and everything like that, so you do have to bear that in mind. And of course the air suspension has been known to go faulty. It's nowhere near as bad as what people think, because 9 times out of 10 it's a compressor. You can get a really good branded compressor for £200 or £300. Let's call it £300, and it's a couple of hours to fit, so it's not the cheapest job, I know that. And as long as you've got a little bit of a pot for these kind of necessities that you can kind of expect on an L320, you're in for a really enjoyable driving experience that still looks the part. Even in today's modern age now, I still think the L320 looks a very, very nice car. So please do your research, of course. You know, you don't take my word for it, they are not bulletproof, I know that. But if you find one that's been really well maintained, you can even find one that's had the compressor done or has had the lower arms done in the last few years, and get yourself a little gem there. But you know, it's one of those things, if you know what you're looking for, it's always easier. So please do the research, and if you do get one, please let me know. I always like to find these things out, and I really hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you have any questions or comments, then please do leave them below, and I'll do my best to get back to you. And please do check out the other videos that I've had as well. As I say, I've had Discovery 4s, I've had the L405, the L494, and various other manufacturers also. I do call myself a little bit of a Range Rover fanboy, but I do quite often like other cars as well. So yeah, please do like and subscribe, and I hope to see you for the next one. Thank you.